Right, so the Premier League season may now be over, but there is never a dull moment as a Chelsea fan, because today Talk Sport, as well as a couple of big media outlets, are reporting that Mauricio Pochettino is prepared to walk from his role as Chelsea Football Club manager if he is not given a greater say in the club's transfer policy. TalkSport are also reporting that the Argentine is due to meet with the club's co-owners Todd Boehly and Eghbali this week to discuss Chelsea's summer transfer plans. Oh, this don't sound great, does it? But before we jump the gun, let's try and keep an open mind. Let's try and not cast judgment, and let's try and discuss exactly what is going on here. Well, firstly, unless these meetings are going to be held back to back with one co-owner at a time, we can at least read between the lines and get some good news here, can't we? Because the last we heard, Todd Boehly and Eghbali weren't even on talking terms. I mean, last season, not the one that's just finished, the season before, I remember these two holding hands, skipping across the Stamford Bridge pitch to go and give Raheem Sterling a bollocking because he hadn't netted a hat-trick against the relegation battle team. So, well, I mean, that's not completely true. The bit about giving Raheem Sterling a bollocking, that is true, but they weren't holding hands, were they? But either way, these two were on very good terms, and so far this season, we haven't even seen them together. So the fact that they are going to be conducting a meeting with Mauricio Pochettino at least tells us that they're on talking terms, which I imagine you lot would want two senior figures in the club's hierarchy to be. Now, if they can just learn to stop being a pair of complete fucking idiots, we might be onto something, mightn't we? No, I'm joking. But it doesn't take a genius to figure out what is going on here, does it? Mauricio Pochettino wants assurances from the board, and the board are not forthcoming in giving Pochettino those assurances. In fact, if we're to believe what Pochettino said, there's not even any dialogue between him and Boehly or Eghbali. So clearly, he's not going to have been given any of those assurances. And once again, it doesn't take a genius to work out what those assurances would be. Don't sell Conor Gallagher, don't sell Trevor Chalobah, scrap the only buying kids policy, and don't go for big money signings in the summer that will inevitably force our hand into selling more of our homegrown players to balance the books. Homegrown players, by the way, that half the time will outperform these new signings coming in. Let's take Trevor Chalobah for an example here, right? If we were to sell Trevor Chalobah this summer, a summer which we know Thiago Silva is departing, we would then have 4 senior centre-backs left at the club. Those would be Badiashile, Disasi, Fofana and Levi Colwill. Now this season, just gone, 2 of those guys have been consistently in and out of the team with injuries, in Badiashile and Levi Colwill. One of them, in Wesley Fofana, has not even stepped foot on a pitch at Stamford Bridge this season because of his injuries, and Axel Disasi has endured a mixed season. So unless we're planning on thrusting Alfie Gilchrist into the firing line, repositioning Reece James, or bringing back Bashir Humphreys from loan, who's never played a minute of Premier League football in his life, we are probably going to need to reinvest money into buying another centre-back if Trevor Chalobah and Thiago Silva were to leave. And the reports are that we believe that Trevor Chalobah should be valued in the region of £25 million. 10 million less than we paid for Benoit Badiashile. 15 million less than we paid for Axel Disasi, and around 45 million less than we paid for Fofana. And despite the fact that Disasi does look like he has potential if he can iron out all of the defensive errors and mistakes, Badiashile could one day become a world-class centre-back if he is put in the right centre-back pairing. And despite the fact that Fofana has looked good when he is fit and available, which is, never, none of these guys, in my opinion, are a better player for Chelsea Football Club than Trevor Chalobah is. So the question then becomes this: do we seriously trust our board in reinvesting the money wisely and upgrading on Trevor Chalobah when their track record so far does not suggest that they are definitively going to be able to do that? And if I realise this, and if you realise this, then I can tell you now that Mauricio Pochettino definitely realises this, okay? And there's some of you now that will be sat there thinking, fucking hell, Joey, you've changed your tune. It was only a couple of months ago that Chelsea was sat 11th in the league, and you said that you wouldn't care if Mauricio Pochettino left. And to that, you would be right. But we are not a couple of months ago, and this is the truth when it comes to Mauricio Pochettino's first season at Chelsea Football Club. Pochettino came into a Chelsea side that was more or less assembled overnight. We only had 3 players left from the starting lineup that won the Champions League final in 2021. Those 3 players being Reece James, Ben Chilwell and Thiago Silva. Reece and Ben have pretty much been injured all season. Thiago Silva is going at the end of it. By the way, it wasn't just Reece James and Ben Chilwell that were injured all season. On average, we had about 9 injuries per game. Only about a month ago, we were having 15 first-team injuries per game. Not only that, we had the youngest squad in the entire Premier League. So if you're not following me right now, let me simplify this for you lot. We have just completed a Premier League season with a load of kids, most of which are injured and the rest of which didn't even know each other 12 months ago. We lost 4-1 to Liverpool, 5-0 to Arsenal, as well as loads of embarrassing defeats along the way. But we also managed to record multiple wins against top 6 sides. Something that, by the way, we did not do once in Todd Boehly's first season as owner of Chelsea Football Club. We started scoring more goals. We went from last season scoring 38 goals in the league to this season scoring 77 goals. It took a lot longer than we were expecting it to, and we had to weather way more storms than we expected to. But when it mattered, at the business end of the season, Mauricio Pochettino pulled out 5 wins in a row and secured us a 6th place finish. 3 points behind Tottenham Hotspur, by the way, who finished in 5th. A position that would have, in 9 out of 10 of the other seasons, got us Champions League football had it have not been for Arsenal, Man City and Man United and the rest of them fucking it up. And listen, believe it or not, I am actually a realist, and I understand that despite it not being about how you start and being about how you finish, Mauricio Pochettino's first season as Chelsea manager was not stellar by any means. But if you can't see that in the recent months he has now done enough to at least be trusted with next season and trusted with the personnel that is bought in and kept in, more importantly, and also let go, then I just don't know where your head is at right now. Listen, Boehly and Eghbali did not get themselves in a position to be able to, with the consortium, buy Chelsea Football Club without being smart and shrewd businessmen. But unfortunately for them, football is a business like no other. And when it comes to footballing matters, Mauricio Pochettino knows a lot more than these 2 guys. And by the way, what has actually changed? Because remember when they came in, Thomas Tuchel's main gripe with these 2 guys is they were putting too much responsibility on them. Thomas Tuchel literally came out and told us that Todd Boehly was asking way too much of him when he came into the club. Tuchel wanted to be the coach. He did not want to have his fingers in all sorts of pies left, right and centre. He didn't want to be in charge of the recruitment. He didn't want to be in charge of other things that go on behind the scene. And Boehly was eager to have a manager that would be able to do that. So what has now changed in terms of all of a sudden, they don't speak to Pochettino, they don't want to let him have any say when it comes to the transfers. And realistically, after us completely turning our fortunes around, they don't even know whether he's the right man for the job. And then it got me thinking, could this have something to do with the availability of other managers now? Could Boehly and Eghbali want to move Tuchel on, but fear fan backlash? And that is why they are now tying his hands and saying, you're going to have no control when it comes to the transfers. Because the general feeling amongst Chelsea fans right now is that Pochettino should be allowed to stay and should be allowed to continue his job for the moment, because it looks like we are coming good now. And if you were to sack him now, when we can finally see light on the horizon, I honestly think that that would cause huge friction between the club's fans and the club's ownership. And I've been critical of Pochettino multiple times this season, man. I've felt in games he's been way more reactive than he has proactive. We all know that he was loving playing players out of position. We had the worrying trend of being way worse in the second half than we were in the first half. And at the start of February, when we had just lost at home to Wolverhampton Wanderers, a team that, by the way, we had been scheduled to face on Christmas Eve. All of the travelling fans went up there all the way to Wolves without any public transport and whatnot. And we embarrassed ourselves up there. So when we welcomed them back to Stamford Bridge, I thought, right, let's show what Chelsea do. Show a bit of pride here and actually beat Wolves as a almost apology to the travelling fans that went up there on Christmas Eve. And we folded at Stamford Bridge and lost to Wolves. At the end of that game, if Mauricio Pochettino was sacked, maybe I wouldn't have felt that strongly about it, man. But then, at the end of that game, at that point, if you had said to me, by the way, between now and the rest of the season, you are going to lose one league match of football. You're going to jump 5 positions in the league and you are going to finish in the Europa League spots, I would have bit your hand off for that outcome. And I even suppose it's about how you win games, isn't it, you know? When we were beating Palace away, Palace at home for that matter, Luton away, Sheffield United, we were not looking good in doing so. And almost just being bailed out time in, time out by Cole Palmer and other individual brilliance rather than being a well set up and organised team. But now, in recent weeks, I feel like we are showing massive consistency within our performances. We are seeing solid and mature performances. We're defending better. We are showing patterns of play. Most importantly, Pochettino is showing in-game management, and he is showing that he is now getting serious cohesion out of this young squad. Remember how we all laugh when Jose Mourinho, a multiple Champions League winner, said that his greatest achievement in football was finishing second with Man United. And then time, as it always does, proved to be the best storyteller. And we sort of looked at it and went, do you know what? Still probably over the top, but maybe not as over the top as we were thinking at the time. Maybe that is somewhat of a huge achievement for Jose Mourinho. Maybe the 6th place finish with Chelsea for Pochettino is something similar to that, you know? Even if we're thinking, okay, the board might want a different manager, look at who's on the market. De Zerbi? Is De Zerbi even that good? Firstly, he fucking hates Chelsea. I don't want De Zerbi. Do you want De Zerbi? De Zerbi doesn't even like us. Is De Zerbi even that good a manager? I've said time in, time out that the infrastructure at Brighton and Hove Albion will always give a platform to a manager if they are good enough to succeed, basically. So I am not saying that De Zerbi's a bad manager, but I'm also not saying he's a brilliant manager, you know. He's come on the market. Obviously, we've got Brighton guys in on boardroom level and whatever, and maybe we're looking at him. But seriously, is he even that good? Is he even that good, De Zerbi? Kieran McKenna, that's another one, and that's fucking mental again, isn't it? Kieran McKenna, like, mate, brilliant, unreal achievements. Coming up from League One, coming up from the Championship, but he's never, ever worked with the players, the talent of player that Chelsea have got, with the big names that Chelsea have got. And look at the teams that came up from the Championship this season. They all went back down, okay? And okay, that might be a bit of a one-off season. Maybe sometimes teams will do better. But at the end of the day, the Championship compared to the Premier League is a different kettle of fish. Going for that type of manager did not work with Graham Potter. And maybe if he was given more time, it might have. But ultimately, it didn't work. And it's not going to work with Kieran McKenna. Ruben Amorim is even on the market. I thought he'd ruled himself out. I just don't see any logic in the slightest in changing manager right now. So here is my message to Todd Boehly, to Ed Barley, and to the Chelsea board. Mauricio Pochettino could have been sacked after Wolves. He could have been sacked after Brentford. He could have been sacked after Arsenal. But to sack Mauricio Pochettino right now would do nothing but show a massive, massive lack of understanding as to where we are at right now. What Mauricio Pochettino has done in the second half of the season, in my opinion, is as good as anyone could have done with the circumstances that they were operating in. Sometimes in life, you have to aim high, and this could be one of those times if you're thinking about changing a manager. But sometimes you also need to have the maturity to understand that the grass is not always greener, and by doing what you think is taking a step forward could actually be shooting yourself in the foot and taking multiple steps back. No manager, no player, no owner for that matter is above criticism. I have given plenty of criticism to Mauricio Pochettino, and I'll probably do so going forward if it is justified. But we need to continue this form into next season, man. Maybe Poch needs to work on his training methods, tailor them a little bit better so that we don't keep seeing these repeat injuries that haven't even happened at Stamford Bridge. They've happened at Cobham on the training pitch. But we're a work in progress, and to pull the plug when we are just seeing light at the end of the tunnel would be fucking moronic. So take it from someone who, believe it or not, is very much in touch with the fan base. I speak to Chelsea fans. I put my hand in my pocket at every single available opportunity and go to games home and away, and I'm in touch with this fan base, and I can speak for them all when I'm telling you now, we want Mauricio Pochettino to stay, you know. There might have been multiple times this season when we weren't saying that, but now we are saying that. And I just feel like when you come good in the way that Mauricio Pochettino's Chelsea side did towards the end of the season, you really need to give him another season, man. And not only do you need to give him another season in the dugout, you need to speak to Mauricio Pochettino right now. You need to sit down with him. You need to brainstorm with him. And you need to find out what he feels he needs. Because ultimately, if my guess is right, and I believe it is, Mauricio Pochettino only wants for Chelsea Football Club what the fans want for Chelsea Football Club going forward. We don't want to have to sell all of our homegrown talent who have Chelsea Football Club in their DNA. We don't want to only bring in wonder kids. We do want to sign a couple of 25-year-olds that you can stick into the mix for next season and that can help us gain experience and can help guide some of these young players to where they need to be. Pochettino's the man to do that right now. If there was other options on the market, maybe I would look into it. Maybe I would. But I honestly think that something is happening under Mauricio Pochettino now. It's taken a lot longer than we thought it would. But to pull the plug now would be absolutely horrific, in my opinion. What do you guys think? Am I overreacting? Have I swung completely from my stance earlier on in the season? I'm sure I have. But I've said it time in, time out. You cannot rely on me to be consistent with my views when the team have not been consistent with their performances. But over the past month or two, we have been consistent. We have picked up pace. We've put in good performances. We have put teams to the sword and we have developed. To get rid of Mauricio Pochettino now would just be moronic, and it would really show us that it is, I don't know. You lot can see this, man. I'm lost for words. For it. People, what do you think? Overreaction or not? Do you want Mauricio Pochettino in the dugout next season? And do you want Mauricio Pochettino to be in charge of the club's transfers going forward? It looks like that's what Mauricio Pochettino wants. And for me, if that's what Poch wants, I think that although having come very, very close to not having the right to do that, he has earned the right to do that in the last few games. Chelsea need to do something about this, man, and we need to make the right decision here. People, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I will see you all in the next one.